And the first question, I think we'll go for you, Greg, with the last name.
Guidry.
Yeah, there you go. You mentioned that we are only as good as our last incident, or incident. Well, that goes for you, of course, but it goes for the entire industry, I assume.
Yep.
So it's a good thing to have conferences, of course, but what else can we do, or could you do, to actually influence people from the other companies so that all of us, all the operators, act responsibly?
Yeah, no, and it's absolutely true. We're only as good as our last incident, and in many cases, we're only viewed as good as our weakest player, okay? And so there are many things that we can do. No question, the industry collaboration, whether it's through fora like this or whether it's through some of our formal industry fora, be it OGP, be it API, be it others. But the others is in our joint ventures. The thing that's unique about the upstream industry, much different than many other industries, is we have all these joint ventures. And in many cases, we're brought together because the geology's kind of set it up that way. In some cases, we make choices to get together with companies. But I think the benefit we have as an industry is that we do operate in joint ventures. And so we have a built-in mechanism to learn from each other and to challenge each other. And I think we just need to continue to challenge. And if we have, if we're in an operator position and we happen to have a privileged position in a joint venture that in an operated position, I don't think that we should use that to not listen, to not be open to learnings and to challenge. And I think if we continue to do that, I think that we'll. And the last one is good information. We need good information. I think Steve will probably talk about some of the information that he's set up on the well's performance and well integrity performance. But we need good information to understand who's performing and who's not, and where are the learnings. And as I said on process safety, we're just getting to the point where as an upstream industry, we're going to have some good benchmarking information for the first time ever on process safety incidents. Yeah.
So since how it's you giving us an example from your point of view today, then what would the one advice be for this audience if they had to take just one thing home from what you've just said?
I'd say it's all about leadership. It's about how we show up. It's not about what we say, it's about what we do. And it's what people observe in terms of how we set our priorities, how we execute, and how we care. Yeah.
Go home and do. Here's a question for you, Mette. Now, as a service company, how do you actually argue the cost side of higher requirements that you want?
Well, I would say that one of the things that I talked about there around building a competency management program like that, there are, of course, costs to doing that. You have to spend time and manpower to map out all those stringent requirements of what you need to do a job safely and then on the right standards. You need to have people in place that are going to assess all the many employees that are going to go to the rigs and do these jobs. So there are absolutely costs associated with it. And I think I see three different places where costs are covered, if you like. One of them is that we've actually already learned from this program being rolled out for quite some time in Gulf of Mexico that it has caused less NPT of the type that was related to lack of training or not quite following procedures. So it does strengthen that aspect, and that's a benefit to both sides, that we can limit that also on the cost side. We are also convinced that this is helpful for staff retention. We're all kind of competing for some of the same talent out there, and we'd rather like to keep some of our guys. And there's an element of that too. But we also view that as the industry as such needs to acknowledge that there are higher costs associated with lifting the standards to those. And we're going to have to share paying for that, if you like, would be my view.
There's actually a question here that, yeah, I can answer this question. Actually, this one goes for you as well, Greg, so both of you. And in a little bit of a thread of it, what you just said, Mette, you mentioned that your personnel are told that they are responsible to stop the job if they are in an unsafe situation, right? It goes for you too, Greg, I assume. Could you mention a situation like that? And how do you know that your personnel knows that they have your backup if they are in an unsafe situation or if an unsafe situation occurs? How do you know that they know they have your backup?
Let me start with an example of where it's happened relatively recently. It's not from this part of the world. It's from some other part of the world. And in that particular instance, what happened was the operator wanted to change out, the well had been designed, operations was ongoing, and they wanted to change out a casing crossover. And our crew that was on that particular well viewed that as putting unacceptable risk on the subsequent perforation operation. And they pointed that out. There was a disagreement over whether this risk was to the level that you really needed to stop work and step back and take a look at that, but they did. They actually abandoned the rig, stopped the operation, and then it was looked at whether this was a safe change of design or not. The outcome was that it wasn't, and it went back to the original design and operations could continue. And I think that it's just one example, but if they don't happen, it won't change. Because you need to be able to have those examples where it was actually possible. And the consequences were that you made a safe decision, but you were still on the job, so to speak. It didn't have implications beyond that, right? So I think it's from example, it's the word of mouth principle also, that you need to see that it's okay and acceptable. Yeah.
Do you have a comment on that, Greg?
Yeah, I'd just say that I just absolutely celebrate it when it happens.
Yeah.
Recognize every time that it happens, and spend an awful lot of time engaging with the organization, making sure that the expectations are clear, so that if it's not happening, you understand that it's not happening. Because it's not enough just to sit back and wait for it to happen and recognize. It's really engaging and understanding what are the dilemmas they're dealing with, and in some cases, what are the workarounds that they may be forced to deal with because of some issue that they haven't been able to communicate. So it's engaging deeply to understand what some of those challenges are, and in some cases, where they're not shutting it down, where they should be shutting it down, understand what's driving that. So I've got, countless examples. In fact, we had one yesterday. We had to shut down Shearwater because of the Total incident 7 kilometers away, yeah? So they called me last night and said, hey, we're down manning on Shearwater. Hey, that's the right move. That's what we got to do. Yeah.
So you know that they know because of their actions.
It's all about, it's not about what you say. Again, it's about what you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
You feel confident in that?
Yeah, but I'm not complacent, because there's no question that from my perspective, it absolutely is a journey. It's very much a cultural change, as many folks indicated today, and it's not going to be a switch. It's going to be a continued reinforcing, behavioral change.
Yes,
Yeah.
I thought it was a good question, though. Does anyone else have a question? I'll ask the last question then. I'll just see how much time. Oh, yeah. That's for you, Greg. Seeing how we relatively frequently have incidents related to asset integrity, could it not be a safer option to just stay away from, for example, the Arctic? The Arctic?
Yeah. The problem is you can say that about so many different things. It depends on, in my mind, it depends on the resource potential. Because we're not going to satisfy the demand of the world, and we're not going to be able to energize many parts of the world that have no energy today. And who are we to choose? Who are we to say that they can't have that energy, right? That's a bit of an interesting question. So we know that it's going to take all forms of energy to satisfy the demand, right? Particularly in the modernizing economy. So if we choose to just kind of arbitrarily shut off major resource potential areas, where we are confident that we can do it safely and responsibly, then that's a big call. That's a big call to make, and we're not the ones to make it, but certainly we're the ones to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to do it safely and responsibly. Yeah, and in this particular case, we're confident that we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you very much. Anyone else? Thank you. All right.